What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Tom Bilyeu Show live. I'm coming to you from London, England. So forgive the totally different setup that we've got here, but we are joined by none other than David Kim. For longtime viewers of the show, you guys will recognize him. Look at that. He gets some cheers. I love it. So David's going to be in the producer's chair today. Our fearless producer is out and about. I actually don't know where he is, but he is not with us today. He will be back next week. So much love to Drew, but he's not here. And as usual, we've got Mason DJing, fighting on behalf of the community, guys. So as always, pop off in the chat. Let us know what you've got going on. We are desperately trying to get Mason to engage more on your behalf. So we'll see how he does today. But we've got a full docket for you guys. French President Macron sues Candace Owens for calling his wife trans over and over and over with a multi-part series that they are not here for. And Candace's response is to quintuple down. This is going to get wild. I don't know if you guys have seen Steven Crowder's take on this, but he thinks Candace is really in trouble. We'll see. Some lawyers have been popping off saying that it's a pretty high bar here in the U.S. To prove that it really is defamation. We'll see. That's certainly going to be a wild ride over the next. It's going to take a while, 18 months, 2 years. So strap in. Trump is making homelessness illegal again as a resident of Los Angeles. I'm kind of here for this, so I'll be interested to hear your guys' take on it. We'll break down exactly what's going on. America is laying out its plan for winning the AI race. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised that I think this is one of the most important issues of our time. This is going to matter. This is going to matter a lot. We are in an ever escalating arms race with China, whether we want to be or not. That really is real. And so we're going to have to be prepared to deal with that. We're going to be talking all about what the actual plan is. NVIDIA's Jensen Huang makes some very bold predictions about the future of AI. Between him and what Elon Musk is doing, it is going to be pretty insane. The scale of what's being built. They really are virtual brains. So this is going to be interesting, man. If we hit ASI, I don't think any of us are ready for that. The Wall Street Journal claims that Trump is indeed on the Epstein list. And boy, oh boy, does South Park have some fun with that. If you guys haven't seen their opening issue of the season, after securing the bag, $1.5 billion, I believe, going to South Park. That's insane. For as long as they've been running, this feels like Flowers for whatever, 20 plus years. Of high performance. Very, very crazy. And then one of my favorite stories of the week, American Eagle leans into evolution and their stock price jumps reflecting it. So, man, I'm telling you, never bet against nature, everybody. Never bet against nature. So here we are. Everybody, welcome. How we doing today, David? You ready?
Yeah. It's another wild news day. We'll start with our friends across the pond. Macron has, gave multiple warnings to Candace and now has officially filed a defamation suit in the States. And I want to get started with Candace's reaction because I thought it was fiery. So let's pull that up, Eric, if you can. And I'd love to get Tom's take on this.
Suicidal?
We'll get your take on that afterwards, Tom. All right, so Eric, that will be right the link. Awesome. We'll share that with the community so they can watch with us.
And the chat is liking Candace. There's a couple of people saying
we're opposed. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Ooh. I think Candace is making a mistake. Anytime that you lay your entire reputation on something, you're saying, I'm going to fight to the death for this, rather than say, I believe this, here's why I believe it, but I'm very open to being wrong. You're putting yourself in a psychological situation where you are basically guaranteed not to see what's true. That's the problem. Like, people forget that your subconscious doesn't just tell you what to look at, it tells you what to see. And so you can end up looking at the obvious truth and see something that isn't there because you just have so much built up on like standing 10 toes down on something. And by the way, Eric, don't wait for me. Hit go whenever you've got that clip queued up. But yeah, I think that while certainly on the surface, there is a lot of weird stuff about this, man, I certainly wouldn't bet my reputation on just about anything that I believe. So beware of over-esteeming one's own abilities to parse the real world.
All right, we've got that clip up now.
Awesome. Let's see it.
I am man. That's the point I'm making. So give us a sample. I'll send my doctors to take your blood. Figure it out real quick, however you want to go about this. Hey, how about just giving us some pictures again of you growing up, raising your children? That would be fine. For whatever reason, to phone, by the way.
What's wild is, and I don't know if
mental
she
violent
really never
right,
saw
that is
them,
what Discovery is
but
for.
there are photos of her raising the kids.
You're probably hoping, this will go away, and at least we'll say we sued her. We'll say we went after her. She'll probably file for this to get dismissed. I'd like to make it to Discovery. I think that
Pause it for a second,
we
Eric.
owe that to.
I'll be very interested to see it. I don't know how many times she's been sued. Like once you've been sued a few times, like your appetite for lawsuits goes down dramatically. And she's going at this like she thoroughly enjoys spending. I mean, she's going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on this for sure, potentially more. So this does not strike me as a good use of proceeds. Now, maybe she's building her reputation by being edgy. And so somehow, some way it's worth it doing this, that she's like, oh, cost of doing business. I'm going to make, let's say $3 or $4 million off this. It's going to cost me $1 million to fight the lawsuit. And so, hey, I come out ahead. But ye gads, like if this does not break her way, like if this ends up going all the way to trial and she ends up losing, dude, tens of millions could be awarded against her. And that's not a position you want to be in. And I mean, you look at somebody like Alex Jones, who's now buried under like $1 billion or more in damages to the families of the Sandy Hook stuff. So this can and has gone wrong. So not sure where she's
going
headed
that way, or do you believe Candace's team's, perspective that they're the ones protecting free speech? Like this is not,
well, okay. So hold on. You've really got to. People in America, for sure, need to be able to say the things that they believe to be true. That is for sure. France is going very much in the wrong direction. So there's no doubt that from where I'm sitting, France has a terrible track record of free speech. However, again, my thing is people really do believe themselves. And I think this is exactly how people get in trouble. You need a stable worldview. I'm not saying think that everything that you believe is wrong. But what I am saying is assume that as a default, humans are wrong a lot, and that finding the truth is this never-ending process of iteration, and that we all have this wild prejudice to reinforce the things that we believe. And so you are so unlikely to be open to new information, and you back yourself into the Semmelweis situation of once you tell the world, I'm willing to stake my entire reputation on this, you're just not going to see it. And for those who don't know, Semmelweis was a Hungarian doctor who tried to convince people that we're killing women by not washing our hands between doing autopsies and giving birth to babies. And of course, it ends up being true. It's germ theory. People didn't believe him. They were not willing to update their mental models because they had so much of their reputations on it. Plus, they didn't want to have to own that, damn, I've killed, I'm sure in each individual case, dozens or even hundreds of women over the years by doing this. And it's just too much psychologically for me to handle to do that. But this is exactly how you make yourself irrelevant. So I don't know, man. I'm haunted by David, as you well know. So people that don't know your background, David's on our creative team. He's a part of Project Kaizen. He's an extremely talented artist. But when he was living in LA and we were very much fighting to get him back, we would argue like all the time about stuff. And so he started becoming an informal part of my process of prepping for interviews just because he had a really weird angle on everything. And then over time became a very formal part of my prep because he would really like push me from angles, I think partly just because of your generation, but also partly because of the way your mind works. And so it was forcing me to like, okay, wait a second. If I can't deal with the argumentation coming from David, the odds are that I'm blind to some angle. And that kind of thing is extremely valuable. But I just find that the average human is not nearly haunted enough by the idea that genius is a young man's game. And given that plays out over and over and over, not because people get dumber as they age, but because they have learned that certain things are quote unquote true, they've helped them navigate life very successfully, but they don't realize that life is changing constantly and that it's very hard to pin down what is objectively true. Okay, anyway, with all of that said, it is empirically true she either was or was not born a man. And so we're going to be able to prove which of those is true. It's just, man, placing that bet is wild. I don't advise it.
Tom,
So,
you
I
mentioned
wanna make
even
sure
if it does end up being true, I don't advise it. Go ahead, Mason.
Tom, you mentioned that staking your reputation on something or refusing to do so is how you lose credibility and will make sure that you never become relevant. Someone in the chat was actually saying that you refuse to stake your reputation on your opinions, especially when it comes to these political topics. But I've heard you stake your reputation on other things. So, like, what is the line between what you ought to, maybe not ought, but what do you stake your reputation on that actually matters? And then what things do you see how they shake out or allow yourself to change your mind over time?
Look, there's a small handful of things that right now I believe they've proven themselves out to be so beneficial that I do sort of unofficially think to myself, like, they're so true that I cannot fathom ever updating my thinking on them. But honestly, I am prepared to update my thinking on anything. But the things that I believe to be true, we are products of evolution. Thinking of yourself through the lens of being a chemical processing automata is far more useful than thinking of yourself as having free will and being able to totally step outside of your biology. Like, all of that seems crazy. If you put time and energy into getting better at something, you will actually get better. I would be shocked if anybody ever convinces me that that's not true. But like, the thing that I'm most vociferous about is the way that the economy works. And so that's the one thing that people should really map how I think about that, because I am constantly, not only am I willing to update my thinking and see that that's incorrect, I am actively pursuing things that will prove that that's incorrect. Because so another foundational belief, I really believe that the reason that you want to learn how the world actually works is not so you can build a reputation in the short term. It's so that you can be effective in the long term. So, for instance, I built a hypothesis around inflation that led me into Bitcoin. Bitcoin has made me so many millions of dollars. It's like, Jesus, this has real application. Now, if you get something wrong, obviously it can beat the life out of you. And so you want to admit that you're wrong as quickly as humanly possible. And just because Bitcoin makes sense today does not mean it's going to make sense tomorrow. So it's like, you have to constantly be updating it. But that same thing allowed me to build companies, which obviously made me extremely wealthy. That same thing has allowed me to have a high functioning marriage. It's like, I'm constantly trying to figure out in what ways I'm wrong. But the validity of pursuing the things that you're wrong about is such a core conviction that I would be very surprised if I ever updated that belief. So, I mean, it's not like I don't have these stabilizing things in the way that I view the world, but most of the quote unquote stabilizing things that I have are meant to keep my worldview from crystallizing. So the great irony is the only like really stable things in my belief system are they're not things that destabilize my worldview. They're things that keep my worldview malleable. And then I'm just measuring everything against outcome.
Talking about changing your beliefs, Candace's show basically got millions and millions of views over this kind of fiery issue. And she's staying strong, she's fighting back. But we are hearing different opinions on the right, where Crowder actually kind of gives a breakdown on the lawsuit itself and potentially shows more evidence. So I would be very curious if our audience, after watching his take, if they change their views. So Eric, if we want to go to that, that's on row 11. Prep that up and let us know once you're ready. You can just start playing it. But overall, I think another question, once we see that, I'd love for you to address, Tom. Community's asking, why does this even matter in the first place? Who cares what the genitalia is? And so I'd love to also get your take on that.
All right, here's that clip.
Yeah, oh yeah. Let's go.
Were you then made aware that this was perhaps incorrect? And did you exacerbate it and make it worse? That's what this is going to be about. Candace responded by, you could say, doubling down.
You were born a man and you will die a man. That's the point I'm making. So give us a sample. I'll send my doctors to take
so
your
hard
blood.
in the paint, man.
Figure it out real quick. However you want to go about this. Hey, how about just giving us some pictures again of you growing up, raising your children? That would be fine.
Yeah, so here's the problem, and if you read the entire filing, and I read 100-something pages of it last night, they actually already did directly send proof to Candace, said pictures, childhood pictures of Bridget. They did send evidence of Bridget's biological motherhood of 3 children. They did send pictures of her of her wedding when she was young. And there already is sworn testimony, for example, from the children and from the, I don't know if sworn testimony, but the previous husband. So she's now moving goalposts and saying, take a blood test. They did also, by the way, send the birth announcement, not a certificate, but an announcement. So newspaper clippings, pictures, sworn testimony, evidence, and this has all been provided to her for a long time. Now, remember,
That's wild.
Man, I'm going to be very interested to see what she's going to do if it turns out that, yeah, like, here's my blood test. I mean, which, God, would they ever go to that in Discovery? I don't think so.
I'm with Brad
think
S.
you
Why
can
does she
compel
care
somebody-
about this so much?
Well, okay, now that's a very complicated issue. So let's start with Catholicism, and then let's end with being an influencer. And so every day that you go live, you have to find something that you find interesting. You have to say it in an entertaining way. And so anybody who steps in front of a camera, trust me, I include myself in this, anybody that steps in front of a camera always runs the risk of saying, okay, I believe this, but I'm going to portray it in a way that's far more entertaining, that's far more crystallized, that's totally black and white, that borders on outrageous, because that's what engages people. And so I'm not even saying that when Candace started all this, that she didn't believe it. She probably did. If you have the belief that all of the like forced indoctrination, all of the top-down suppression of speech that we went through for, God, it's getting close to 10 years at this point. I get why people push back, why there was backlash. It really bothered me as well. And to be honest, I never thought that I would be talking about anything political or anything culture war related. But I started to feel like a coward, that I wasn't willing to talk about certain things. And so I have a self-respect trigger that bumped into. And so then I found myself talking about it just because I didn't like the way that it was making me feel about myself, that I had thoughts on it, thought that it was pushing people into a stupid box to not be able to explore these ideas out loud. So Candace blew past that stop. But if you are deeply religious and believe that this is an affront to God, if you feel like this is being crammed down on people from the top down, if you believe that just psychologically, one of the core precepts of our evolutionary hardwiring is to understand the difference between men and women, and that you create this sort of deranging effect when you don't allow people to say what they believe to be true, or you're teaching people things that aren't true. And so as they try to build a worldview, it's just going to be weird. And I'll admit, even just from a relationship perspective, if you don't understand the fundamental difference between men and women, marriage is going to confuse the shit out of you. And so there really are places where the rubber meets the road where this becomes problematic. And then, of course, we can get into women in sports. You can get into men in women's spaces and whether that matters. So there are a host of reasons to care about this. The real question is, why go so hard in the paint? And that one comes down to, partly it just really does seem to be her personality. She is wildly disagreeable. And so if you look at somebody like Destiny or Candace, they certainly don't have the internal reaction that I have. Like, I get uncomfortable when I'm getting into a fight with somebody. They love that. Destiny has just said publicly and privately, like, I enjoy getting into these conflicts. And so there really might be some part of her that relishes the fight. And it's entirely possible that a big part of the reason that I have a more sensible approach is just that I don't like the way it feels to be that confrontational, to go that hard in the paint. Like, one of the things that I always have spikes of anxiety about are like, is there a blind spot that I'm so convinced this is right, and then I'm going to get hit from an oblique angle that I just didn't see coming. And one, that means I have learned in life that there are massive consequences. There are huge prices to be paid if you are marching down a path thinking that you see the complete picture and you don't. And that 99.99999% of the time, you do not see the complete picture. So there's just a huge lobe of my brain that is on the lookout for what is that oblique angle from which I am going to get hit. They seem to be completely lacking that. So, yeah. So that's what I really think is going on. People are more, and certainly our community, I think, if you resonate with the way that I think, you're more likely to look at that sideways. But that's what I think is going on. She does have reasons. I think society cares about this for very valid reasons, but she does it in such like this hyperbolic confrontational way that there's the WWE of it all, where people now just want to see, all right, how hard does she crash and burn? We're about to find out.
I actually want to put you in a hypothetical, Tom, if you're ready for one.
Let's
so
go. I love hypotheticals.
Imagine,
make it as hard as possible.
Yep. So imagine actually you are in Macron's position, because I feel like, hey, just give the evidence. It's done. There's no controversy. It doesn't keep going on. But if you were in his position and another large podcaster is in the space and starting to spread conspiracies about Lisa. Lisa's actually a man. Oh, even though you see these photos, she's not actually who she says is, and starts damaging her reputation. At what point do you respond, and how do you respond? Do you wait for it to get big? How would you do it?
The second my wife wanted me to respond, I would respond. So if Lisa was like, no, for real, like this is really upsetting me, I want you to go out there, then I would go out there. And listen, I will be very honest. I will do irrational things for my wife. So even if I was like, this is a bad idea, like just let this go. And she was like, no, it really means something to me. It is very important. Importance like a magic word in my marriage. If she said it's important to me that you address this, then I would address it no matter what it meant. So I'm not going to lie, but I would certainly address it, even if I thought that it was terrible PR. So I get Macron like saying, look, we got to do something about this. It's upsetting his wife, like president or not. These are still humans. They still have emotions. And so if he's really in love with this person and he sees her in pain, then he's going to address it. Now, if he lies, he's going to make it worse. And that's where it's like, well, you got into politics, homie. You brought this on yourself. But
Tom,
yes,
you wouldn't need to lie, right? Wouldn't you just be like, hey, Lisa, give the blood sample and we'll be done over with? Or do you feel like that?
Yeah. Like
now you're negotiating
I would not,
with Paris
if she really were in a weak position, like if it were a lie, then I would be like, you've got to be radio silent. You've got to be above this. Like, do not get in the mud because you're in a weak position. Dude, yeah, getting into a debate where all you have is emotion is crazy to me. You've got to find a totally different strategy. Like this is where you get into politics. So first of all, I'm very much of the, so that you don't have to remember what lie you told, just be honest. Like if there are things that you're not going to talk about, just say, I'm not going to talk about that. Fair enough. But yeah, you don't want to be in a position where you're trying to track the lies that you told. So it really becomes, this is why I will never be a politician. I don't know that you can get elected without lying. And that's an us problem. Humans want things packaged. Humans want the lie en masse. Maybe individually, everybody's going to say they don't, but en masse, they very much do, which is why we keep electing narcissistic sociopaths who will lie about anything to get into office. And that's left or right, doesn't matter. That's just who gets elected. So yeah, I would not go to bat for Lisa if I knew she was lying because it's going to make things worse. It's going to burn my reputation down and it's actually not going to help her in the long run. So from that perspective, I would draw a line and say, yeah, this is not going to serve anybody. But if the truth is on my side and she's saying, please go speak, even if it's bad PR, I would do it 100% aggressively.
Amazing. Well, I guess we'll ultimately see what comes out of Discovery. At least we get some transparency there potentially. Where we're potentially not getting transparency is in the Epstein files, as always. But the Wall Street Journal has recently, Wall Street Journal has come out with tidbits. So I'd love for Eric to pull that up on row 6 and just kind of show the status and what they're claiming. And then we can just kind of chat about that.
Just to advocate for Drew while he's not here, we are never getting these Epstein files.
Dude, this is really
if the Wall Street Journal is correct, we are starting to see some leakage somewhere. So we can take it at face value, or we can dive into potentially if that's a nothing burger.
All right, we've got this from the Wall Street Journal.
All right, so it is behind a paywall, but ultimately we can try to break it down.
Look at that, 21.3 million views. Do you have the details on this, or do you want me to go through it? Dude, no, people can say what they want. Go for it.
I was just going to read through the key parts that people are kind of going back and forth on. So in the article itself, there's a section that says, when the Justice Department officials reviewed what Attorney General Pam Bondi called a truckload of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein earlier this year, they discovered that Donald Trump's name has appeared multiple times according to the senior administration officials. So in May, Bondi and her deputy informed the president at a meeting in the White House, and his name was in the Epstein files, the official said. Now, many other high-profile figures were also named, Trump was told, but being mentioned in the records isn't a guaranteed sign of wrongdoing. The official said it was a routine briefing that covered numbers of topics and that Trump's appearance in the document wasn't the focus. They told the president at the meeting that the files contained what officials felt as unverified hearsay about many people, including Trump, who had socialized with Epstein in the past, and some officials said. One of the officials familiar with documents said they contained hundreds of other names. So that is kind of the context and the claim. So it is potentially true that his name is in the files, but maybe not in the way that people are expecting. So is Elon vindicated here, or do you feel like this is a nothing burger, Tom?
It's definitely not a nothing burger. I mean, this is a massive story. This is not going to go away. This is the kind of thing that you're going to hear about forever and ever and ever. We've already been living with Epstein for like 4 or 5 years. So I would not expect this to go away. Now, are we ever going to get the files? Probably not. Trump knows how to word it where it's like, okay, I've instructed them to release any files that are relevant that the court system, will release. Now, conspiracy, but like this is a total theory. I do not know this to be true, but you can imagine it's like, hey, call the judge and find out, like, what would you say if this happened? Well, I would say this. And then you go make your statement because you know what the knock-on effect is going to be. Dude, when I try to mentally map what's going on, the only thing that makes sense is everybody's in this document, like left and right. And so nobody wants this to come out. So everybody knows, like, you've got Kevin Spacey, release the files. Trump, yeah, release the relevant files. You had Biden silent on it for 4 years. The only thing that makes sense, if you try to figure out, like, wait, how have we ended up here, is that donors are on the list, people on the left are on the list, people on the right are on the list. Trump, I've always said, at a minimum, this is going to be decidedly inconvenient for our boy Trump, whether it's donors, people he's promised things to, whatever, or him himself. There's no way this is a good look for anybody. All the footage of him with Epstein is a terrible look. Him and Epstein ogling women, not a good look. Trump making weird comments about his own daughter, not a good look. The grab him in the you-know-what, not a good look. Like this, Trump, first of all, is not the guy you go to for moral purity. I hope nobody is in the Trump game for that, because you're going to be sorely disappointed. But the real question is, how gnarly are the politicians currently running the world? That's, I think, what everybody really cares about. And I don't think anybody wants to live in a world where the modern world is controlled by people that have dirt on you, no matter what that dirt is. Now, it's like 1,000 times worse if the dirt is PDF files, but it's bad no matter what. And that's where I think all of this gets weird. And I know whenever David's around, you're definitely going to be talking about Jewish conspiracies. So brace yourselves for that one. I'm sure that's going to come up later.
But throwing me under the bus. What is also, this? You need context.
No. Hey, look, you're way more in touch with what's going on with the kids these days, David. Because, man, my generation, I guess we just did not catch that anti-Semitism wave. But it is coming like a freight train these days. But so you've also got that tied up in it. So, and by the way, true or not, I have no idea. But you put all of that together, and this is a superstorm. It's not going away. People have a right to care about it. We're living in an era of such volume and velocity of information. Politicians are not going to be able to hide everything anymore. They can still hide a lot, but they're not going to be able to hide everything. So this is going to become a game of controlling the narrative, using volume and velocity of information against people, trying to use a very rapid news cycle to move past this stuff. And so it's ultimately going to be up to us whether this is going to be the thing that we want to hang on to or not. And what's wild is even I can feel it. It's like at some point the audience just gets fatigued and they're like, I don't care. I'm just tired of talking about it, even though, yes, like this is profoundly dangerous and absolutely terrible. But I've already like had all the interesting thoughts that I'm going to have about it. And now I'm just bored. And so part of that is also what they're counting on is just like, they know you're going to want to talk about new things. It is insane to me, like the things that politicians can do and then get away with, because their actions have such consequences that you can never say, oh, I just don't care about them anymore, because they're impacting your daily life. So it's like there is a certain and very large contingent of people that are always going to pay attention to politics for that reason. And so they just have this ability to on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. Yeah, we'll see.
So
That's so
Marusha
insane
Dark
to me. But
came in and said, I still maintain Trump is likely playing to catch a predator with the files, either using them as blackmail or downplaying them to lull people into a false sense of security. That idea of using them as blackmail, like as a president, to for what? That's an interesting thought to me.
yeah, that's actually
Oh, bro,
interesting, Tom.
look,
Do you think that can be
dig
justified?
into politics. Justified. Yeesh. Fuck.
That's a
Okay,
loaded
here's
word.
the reality, boys and girls. Here is what we are going to have to deal with in the real world. In the real world, people murder, they kill, they enslave. That's the world we're actually in right now, 2025. Not like, 5,000 years ago, this is what we did. This is what we do right now today. That is the human animal. And once you realize that, it's like, how far will you go to keep people safe? Like when you hear Andrew Bustamante talk about moral flexibility, and that's what they look for in the CIA, where it's like, oh yeah, I would do that to stop, like, if you could kill Hitler, like, would you go kill a baby? You know what I mean? And then people are like, yeah, because he's going to kill however many millions of people. Yes, I would kill that baby. Okay, well, if you knew you were going to stop a child predator that was going to molest 100 people, what would you do? And so would you sacrifice 1,000 kids to save 1,000,000 kids? Are you a monster if you don't? So it's like, these are the questions put to world leaders. And I'll point everybody at Churchill. This is one of those things where like every person has to decide for themselves whether Churchill is a monster or whether Churchill is a hero. And to me, it really is. So he was known as the lion. And it really does come down to that. It's like when a lion eats a gazelle to stay alive, are they a monster? Or is that just the way of the world? And so that's tough, man. That's tough. And I, for one, come down on the side of I'm glad that he stood up to Hitler, but some of the things he did were monstrous. And I could not do it, which is precisely why you should not elect me as president. Like, I just, nope. So if you've seen A Few Good Men, there is a character in that named Jessup, Colonel Jessup, and he talks about this very thing. He's like, you sleep soundly at night because I'm willing to do unspeakable evil. And if I wasn't willing to do unspeakable evil, you wouldn't be able to sleep soundly, because there are men out there who will do unspeakable evil and they will not stop until they hit a force that is equal in the opposite direction. So honestly, I've thought a lot about this with Vikings. If you've ever heard of the Berserkers. So there were a contingent of young men who would almost certainly get high. Some speculate on some sort of mushroom, but they would get high, they would strip naked, and they would just kill, kill, kill. That's why you have sociopaths in your midst. When you're living in a world where resources really are finite and people are trying to kill you and take your women first and foremost, and your resources, pretty quick you go, well, that guy freaks me out, but he's on our team, so I'm going to point his sociopathic ass at the enemy. And because of that, we have them in the gene pool, and they have to be dealt with at some point. So, man, it's one of those things I wish didn't exist, but it does exist.
We've got a
we
super
have a
chat from
relevant
Tim
super
Riley.
chat.
Yeah, super
Oh,
chat.
Tim?
Yes, Tim Riley. New web article. Trump's commerce pick Howard Lutnick lived next door to Epstein. His space and data ventures are tied to Epstein-linked actors. That's the real pipeline from Epstein's blackmail network into Trump's cabinet.
So I know nothing about that, but I will say that I don't want to be held responsible for what my neighbors are doing. My neighbors could be total psychopaths running a child sex ring, and I would have no idea. And so if somebody down the road was like, well, Tom lived next door to that guy, I'd be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Just because he's my neighbor does not mean that I know him, hang out with him, anything like that. Now, he could also be wildly in the mix. I just don't know on that. But the reality is that people create networks. Networks are extremely powerful. People will do favors for people in their network because they expect that to come back around. So yeah, if people are tightly interwoven into your network, odds go up that there's some sort of connection, quid pro quo within the group. That's the very thing that makes the network powerful. But again, it's certainly not a guarantee. And just because they live next door to each other doesn't mean that they're connected. And just because they're in the same financial space doesn't mean that they're connected. But there is so much of that interconnection. I even think about that as being a YouTuber in the political space, not solely, but certainly that's one of our beats. And the more that you can get other people to come on your show, have you on their show, the more likely you are to grow. Just welcome to networks, man.
Terry
Yeah, so
Wyckoff also had a pretty interesting question. I just want to get to this real quick. If Trump's association with Epstein in the files was incriminating, wouldn't Obama just have used that instead of fabricating Russian collusion?
No, not if he knows that there are also people on his side that are in it. Like, you just have to think about it in this way. If half of Washington, D.C. Is involved in this, it's the one thing everybody knows, oh, this is never going to come out. So this is the one place I'm safe. And so you can see how that would like escalate, where it's like, oh, I'm looking across the aisle. If you're here and they've got dirt on you and I'm here, we both see each other, then now it's mutually assured destruction of the reputation kind. And just like that has stopped us from launching nuclear weapons at each other, it stops people from surfacing that. And man, it is a fascinating aspect of the human animals, especially males, that if you really want to trip somebody up, you get them involved in sex, man. It is wild. It is wild. So you're arguing with God on this one. I have no idea why. Well, I mean, I can explain it from an evolutionary standpoint, but it is a pretty big trip. Yeah.
I feel
That
like
question is interesting for
all
people
of
that
these-
believe in God.
Yeah, I feel like this, this is really revealing. Like, people are trying to find ways to think through, oh, maybe he's in the file, maybe he's using it as leverage, maybe he's not, and he's getting blackmailed another way. But another thing I see is like, how many, as you say, not good looks does it take before it really just becomes damning for Trump? And like, I believe
It's
last week they also
already
had-
damning, dude. It's already damning. But here's the thing. What do people care about? Are you making me richer? So, oh God, I really shudder to think how far he could go and how much could come out. If the economy started growing at like 4 or 5%, bro, like you could find corpses in the White House and people be like, yeah, but look at my portfolio. So,
I mean,
that's
would you
rough,
stop
but
talking
that's
about it
true.
if it goes up 4 to 5%, even though more and more like leaks from
Would
the
I
Wall
stop
Street Journal
talking about it?
shows-
No. But I have a self-respect trigger. So it is when you get down to the individual level, it almost stops being interesting. It's like, look at the patterns across humans where it's like, dude, people just want to know, is my life going to be better next year than it is this year? Are my kids' lives going to be better next year than this year, or for them than they were for us growing up? That's what people care about. And I'm jesting a little bit that you could find corpses in the White House because enough people always feel like the other side is the enemy, that they would come after him. But you have a lot more leeway if things are going well. If things are going poorly, you're toast.
I want to get your take on this because I want to give a little bit more context. So last week, Wall Street Journal, gave another article saying that Trump had a birthday letter to Epstein and quote unquote says, "Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret." And there was a drawing of a woman, and around her vagina area, he signed his name. And that, again, if true, that is crazy. But to this point, and this is now going to be pushing on your highest value, which is free speech, the one that you'd be willing to fight for. Trump is suing Rupert Murdoch over the Wall Street Journal letter, and it does say, like, isn't this a chilling effect on journalism, free speech? Like, how do we actually get information out there if it goes against the highest people in power, if they're just suing everyone and they have billions of dollars to go after them? So what's your take on that?
Well, if they're suing people for legitimate reasons, because we do have laws, free speech is not completely unlimited, and I'm perfectly fine with the laws as they exist. So if that letter's fake, and it's fake, and you publish it anyway, then just like with the Macron situation, yeah, you must suffer the consequences for that. But if it's within the bounds of free speech, like the Colbert thing, As more information comes out, it doesn't look like this was directly Trump saying, can it? You cannot lose $40 million a year forever. Like, that's pretty wild. If they go after South Park, then we'll know, okay, this really is like, this is a free speech problem. If South Park gets away with it, then I seriously doubt that this is, that was Trump going after Colbert. We'll see. But yeah, if it's an attack on free speech truly, then obviously I have a wild beef with that. If it is just people not adhering to the laws that already exist, then, I mean, the laws already exist. Anybody can go after you for that kind of thing.
All right, we'll continue with Trump's controversial, actions. Trump just signed a new executive order yesterday on ending vagrancy and restoring order. So, some people are taking this as it's going to make homelessness illegal. This is great, or this is so
Thank God.
inhumane. You're not thinking about, how people
No,
are going to
bro,
survive
this is
on the
wild.
streets.
Okay, I'm gonna give you my completely unhinged take, and then please tell me where I become a sociopath. But you absolutely cannot allow people to do drugs out on the street, to build homeless encampments. First of all, like, there really is something buried deep in the human psyche about things that are beautiful. Things that are beautiful are taken care of. And things that, once things start going to shit, they just escalate and it gets worse and worse and worse. And then people feel like, oh, well, anything goes here. And it becomes this spiral. Societal norms matter a lot. Societal norms are an evolutionary pressure to keep behavior in check. And once that goes out the window, things derail very, very fast. And so, unfortunately, with stuff like this, to make sure that this does not bleed out into society, you've got to draw some lines. Now, of course, there is a point at which it becomes so draconian that it's ridiculous. And then as society, you would expect that people would push back again. But the left and the right, which I think are evolutionary mirrors. So the political left is about compassion. The political right is about personal responsibility. Evolution realizes you need both of these. They have to remain in dynamic tension. When they're not, and you're lopsided in either direction, it's pathology, it's tyranny. Tyranny comes on the left, tyranny comes on the right. Like, it doesn't matter. Just pick your flavor of being killed. So I don't want this to go all the way to, like, Singapore and getting caned because you did graffiti. Like, that's a bit aggressive for my taste. But at the same time, what has happened in LA, I've had the good or bad fortune of living there long enough to watch LA start pretty gnarly in the mid 90s, become beautiful and got cleaned up. And oh man, it was really wonderful. And now it's like on the decline again. And so watching that cycle has been brutal. And you realize, whoa, policies really have an effect. And I don't think it's compassionate to let people do drugs on the street. I don't think it's good for the vast majority of people are not doing that. And so, yeah, I think that it is good to put up boundaries and say, this is acceptable, this is not. And that there should be a level, like, it should be punishing to be on the street, meaning it shouldn't be comfortable. You should be moved to undesirable areas. Store owners should be able to have you forcibly removed from in front of their store. All of that stuff, which should make being homeless suck a lot, so that people go, I don't want to be homeless anymore. Doing drugs openly should suck. It shouldn't just be that, like, oh, you're, spiraling your life. It should be, no, we don't tolerate that behavior. And so people are forcibly either imprisoned or forced into getting the help that they need to get off the drugs. But you cannot just let people, let me say it another way. There will be huge societal consequences, which, living in LA, you see every day, to letting people spiral like that. So yeah, to me, this is a very clear and cut case. This should never have had to come down from the federal level. But some states are just letting this go way unhinged.
Jay Mayer
Yeah,
said the problem with banning homelessness is that they are still homeless. That does seem like an obvious hole, but one that's not directly fixable. Like, how do you approach that problem?
I mean, the honest answer is you force them into an undesirable area. So at least before, you could avoid going to Skid Row. If you went to Skid Row, that was on you. Skid Row has come to us. Like, you can go literally just down the hill from where I live, and there are homeless people all over the place. It is wild. And again, because I've lived through when there were no homeless people to now there being, in fact, there were homeless people, then it all got cleaned up, and now there's homeless people again. It's like, it's pretty crazy. So you have to force them into other areas. I'm not saying that you arrest people, but I think that that should be on the table. That gives you the option to pick them up, and you can drop them off in like the designated area. You can forcibly remove their belongings if they put them in front of stores. It's like, yeah, I'm here for all of that. You shouldn't be able to beat them. You shouldn't be able to manhandle them, but you should definitely be able to say, okay, we're picking you up, we're moving you, we're dropping you off. Or if for whatever reason, if you're being violent, if you're posing imminent danger or whatever, that yes, that they're able to use that, whether it's the fact that you're on drugs or the fact that you are homeless, to say this is illegal. And so we are going to press the issue because you've escalated. I think you always want to have a deft hand at the beginning. You don't want to go straight to the ultra aggressive stuff. You want to give them a chance to just move along. But if they don't, you want to be able to escalate.
I hear some amazing. Oh, sorry. Go for it.
No, go for it, David. You're good.
I was just going to say I'm hearing some good takes from the community. I want to get your opinion on this. But to give context, I think it's good to show the Michael Schellenberger tweet because I think this will frame the conversation well for some of these comments. Ultimately, I'll read the key part for me, which was harm reduction led to drug deaths rising from 20,000 in 2000 to over 100,000 in 2023. So based on your philosophy on cause and effect, whatever we've currently been doing, it obviously hasn't been working. But people in the comments are kind of bringing up a good point, which is how do you know you're not just addressing the symptom and you're actually going to the cause? Again, is it who's funding all this fentanyl? Is it China and they're the ones bringing it in and we got to stop it there? Or again, is there actually a chain before that of, Tom, if I gave you fentanyl right now, I'd be like, take it. You probably wouldn't take it, right? So it doesn't actually matter that the supply is here. There's something deeper going on. So could you talk to
there certainly is something deeper going on. Well, so now we're taking me to my favorite thing to talk about, which is the economy. But yes, you want to get to the underlying cause, but you also need to address the symptom. So you don't go, okay, look, you have a brain tumor. I know your head is absolutely killing you. You have the worst headaches ever. You're going to have to deal with that for 18 months. We're going to address the underlying cause, and then you're never going to have a headache again. So you need to do both. You need to get rid of my headache right now and address the underlying cause. So yeah, there are also things that are happening in society where the cause of that problem, take property values dropping, the cause of that problem is homeless people. And obviously that's not the sole cause, but that is certainly one of them. So businesses going out of business. The cause is largely the people setting up camps in front of their stores, which make people not want to go in. Doesn't mean that Amazon isn't a huge factor as well, but when you already weaken something, like you have these things to address. So looking at it as a whole ecosystem is incredibly smart, but at the same time, you want to address the symptom and the cause.
Now, some people are saying you're not, empathizing right with the homeless people. If you were in their situation, right, is this the type of policy do you want to see? And so kind of giving another kind of framing. Let's say you know me, right? But let's say I just had a genetic default, something's wrong with my brain, and I just keep doing this stabbing motion anytime I'm near you, right? I just so happen to always carry a knife with me. Obviously it's an absurd hypothetical, but it's like, if we see this as there's just something genetically or just their predisposition or they're born this way or they're put into a terrible situation and they're just in that state and they're potentially not going to change, what do you do with these people? Ultimately, like, does your heart go out to them?
Look, it is a rough roll of the dice, but you have to address the world that we actually live in. You want to be compassionate. There's no reason, like, minimum force needed, right? You don't want to jump to being an asshole. You want to, for sure, I get that you're going through something hard. You're just not going to be able to do it here on the street. Sorry. And so if I were going through that, there was a time in my life where I couldn't pay all of my bills. I wasn't mad at the companies charging me money. I was like, I've got to figure out a way to get out of this problem. And that is exactly the world that I want to live in. I want to live in a world where people expect you to get control of your life, to do your best to live well, that understand that, hey, we're all going to slip up from time to time, that want to make sure that you've got a way to deal with that stuff and they want to see you do well and they help when they can. But that we don't just let people run riot and do whatever the hell they want and say, well, I don't want to correct their behavior or anything. That's not really nice. And look, this is a bad thing. It could happen to any of us. Yes, it could, but that doesn't give you the excuse to just act a fool. So this is it literally is the left becoming unbalanced. We want people to be compassionate, but you don't want the compassion to become pathological, which is exactly where we are now. It is out of balance. So again, personal responsibility can become unbalanced. But if you think about at what layer of society do you want that compassion to happen? And this is why the fact that communities used to like have mechanisms, oftentimes religion, to take care of people that were falling on hard times, that's the right way to handle this stuff. You don't want to be doing this at the federal level. You don't want to be doing this at the state level. You want to push this down to the community level where they actually know the people that are struggling. They know who's mentally ill. They know who's just fallen on hard times so that they can address these issues one by one. And they're not trying to do this from a blanket standpoint. To the stat that you were reading earlier, we tried it. Great. We ran the experiment, but it didn't work. And so what drives me crazy is not that we tried the experiment. It drives me crazy that we got a result, a very clear and startling result, and we just keep fucking going. It's absurd. It's like you ran the experiment for a reason. You had a KPI that you expected to be influenced. That got influenced in the exact wrong direction. It is making the problem worse. Admit, hey, tried it, didn't work, and so now we're going to do something else. But people don't do that. They tell themselves a story about what this means. They get locked into it. They double down. I'll stake my whole reputation that we have to be kind to homeless people. And so now they can't back out of it, even though it's making the problem worse and worse and worse and worse, and things are getting more and more dangerous. Like, bro, look at the number of rapes in Europe that have gone up. I won't even ask you to believe that it's an immigration problem. I will just tell you, it's a problem. It has gone up. It's something like tenfold in 20 years. It's wild. So looking at that kind of stuff and going, okay, well, we've changed something. What have we changed? Because I could be wrong. Maybe it isn't immigration. Maybe it's something else entirely, but it's something. And so figuring out what that something is going to be very important. And right now people get so dogmatic. And again, this to me is largely an echo of economics. We have been forced into populist positions, at which point people become completely tribal, completely emotional. They care not for anything other than what does my team believe? What am I going to bat for? In fact, David, this might be the time to talk about Lee Kuan Yew, who
Interesting.
I think, so I want to do a deep dive on him. I think this is very interesting. He had a really powerful insight about how people group up in tribes far faster than they group up in like what's good for you economically. And so you have to understand that a multicultural society is very different than a homogenous society. Pull that quote up really fast.
Yeah, so Eric, that'll be on row 8, and we'll pull that up.
And while he pulls that up, for people that don't know who Lee Kuan Yew is, he founded, I think is actually the truth, Singapore. So Singapore used to be part of Malaysia, and they got into some huge rift with Malaysia. Malaysia was basically like, fuck you guys. You're no longer part of Malaysia. You go be poor over there. And Lee Kuan Yew was like, all right, I think I know how to solve this problem, and literally turned Singapore into a nation state and has made it one of the most prosperous places in the world. It's one of the most extraordinary turnaround stories of taking people from desperate, crushing poverty, I think like back in the 50s and 60s, to being like a just incredible shining city now. And he had like a whole series of beliefs that he built everything on the back of. And one of them is home ownership. So, don't get me back on that horse, but home ownership, make sure that people were tied into it, but also just recognizing, he said, basically, I was willing to fight to the death against the communists because it just doesn't work. It's really interesting to hear Lee Kuan Yew talk about Deng Xiaoping, who was the leader of China after Mao, who turned everything around. He said he came to Malaysia and basically was like, oh, communism doesn't work. Got it. And so goes back to China and comes up with this very famous, like, it doesn't matter if the cat is black or white as long as it catches mice. So realizing what we're trying to do is make everything good for our people. Communism killed some ungodly number of our people. So this clearly is not the play. Let's turn to capitalism. So anyway, Lee Kuan Yew is that guy, right? Has a success story to rival any success story on planet Earth. And he has this quote. Pull it up.
Yep. And as Eric pulls up, I'll just read this. So this was in 2005 in an interview. And he said, in multiracial societies, you don't vote in accordance with your economic interests and social interests. You vote in accordance with race and religion. So people are using this ultimately as a response to other socialist democratic Somali leaders, immigrant leaders potentially coming in and changing the demographics of our country. But, as you kind of gave a good context of who he is, he's obviously someone who really understood cause and effect, because he took Singapore from basically a third world country into becoming one of the most successful nations in that area. But other people are saying, hey, this is just very xenophobic. This is racist. How can you support a leader like this? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, dude, this is wild. Here, people confuse race with values. Race doesn't matter. Values matter a lot. The problem is, if somebody looks like you and grew up where you grew up, the odds that they share your values goes up. But it's really, race is just shorthand for values. And this is why the Black community will turn. If you're in a left-leaning group of Black people and you come across a right-leaning Black person, all of a sudden they're gonna turn. And what they're mapping is, oh, you don't share my values. And so now all of a sudden race doesn't matter to them, because it never mattered to anybody. It was merely a proxy for shared experience, shared values, and shared experience and shared values matter a lot. And from an evolutionary standpoint, it becomes obvious why that would be true. You have to have an algorithm in your brain for us versus other. But where we draw the us versus other is wildly random. And so you can put people, they've done these studies where they'll group them up by literally random assignment. They will group them by color of shirt. They'll group them by eye color. And they'll say, okay, now distribute resources either evenly, or you can distribute them however you want. And people will, with a distressing predictability, they will distribute to people that are their in-group. Remember, their in-group may have been randomly assigned. But once people say, oh, you're in my tribe, I got you, fam, say less. So we just have to accept that that's what we're about to watch play out. And so, look, we all did the shut up and don't be racist thing for the cancel culture moment. But the reality is that has low predictive validity. High predictive validity is that demographics matter a lot. They matter because of values, and every population is going to have to decide what values they're willing to fight for, what values they're going to organize their country around. And here's the thing, like, there's no right or wrong answer. There's only you're willing to fight or you're not willing to fight. And right now, the West is not willing to fight for their values. And so their values will get replaced by a group that is willing to fight for their values. Again, I don't think it will look on the surface as if it is breaking racially, but the reality is it's breaking along lines of value, which will be tied to religion, will be tied to where you grew up. So those are the things that people need to look out for. This is why immigration matters. It's not a race thing. So you can have people of your same race, but if they grew up in a different religion with a different set of values, you're going to have a problem. And people are going to be very surprised. This is the same thing I see with economics. People are like, the economy's broken. Yes, the economy's broken. The economy's broken because capitalism doesn't work. False. The economy's broken because you have this weird bastardized system called modern monetary theory that has these wild trade-offs that allow the economy to be manipulated. So if you only get so far in terms of being right to say the economy's broken, but then you give the wrong reason for why it's broken, then all hell breaks loose. We are going to see the exact same thing. And so everybody ran the "this is about race" experiment. I hope we all can agree this isn't about race, but it is about values, and it really is going to matter. It's
all right. Let me actually push back against that.
Please
with
go hard in the paint.
Yeah, because I really want to get this nuance, because my heart says I believe in that. I don't think it's about race. I think it's about values. But again, continuation of the quote, just so people have the full context. Lee Kuan Yew continues and says, supposing I'd run their system here, Malays would just vote for Muslims, Indians would just vote for Indians, Chinese would just vote for the Chinese, and out of a constant clash in my parliament that cannot be resolved because the Chinese majority would always overrule them. So I found a formula that changes that. And the interviewer says, and that's just turning Singapore de facto into a one-party state. And he basically admits, like, from his experience, he took it from nothing to greatness. And he's just like, you basically need a benevolent dictator that values meritocracy in a multiracial society. If not, the people will just vote for their race and religion. And again, Tom, you're saying, oh, but the values matter. It's not about the race. But if reality shows you, maybe on the individual level, you are absolutely correct. But on the mass level, the average person is just going to go with their race, potentially not even their values, right? So in that case, if
No,
that is actually what reality is telling you,
what David, what reality is telling you is that race is a proxy for values. And so even if people are making a mistake and they don't realize by voting with the Indian bloc, oh, none of these guys believe what I believe. There is a reason that Muslim Indians will kill Hindu Indians. They're both fucking Indian, but they will kill each other in broad fucking daylight because they don't share values. I'm telling you right now, religion is where you have your beef. It's not always religion, but usually it's religion. This is how for millennia we have passed along our beliefs and our values. People will kill over whose God is what. They will kill, man. And so when people go, oh, this is about religion, I'm just like, bitch, do you know how many white people kill other white people because they believe in a different God?
Cool,
do you know how many
Tom.
Indians
All right, I'm going to
kill
push back
other
against
Indians
then.
because they don't believe in
All
the
right,
same
so
God?
I actually agree with you.
Oh,
I
man.
think potentially the only thing stronger than biology, which is insane to say, is religion, right? It's the thing higher than you. It transcends potentially biology, connects cultures across the whole entire world. That being said, if that is actually true and you actually believe that, then why don't we just become a fully Christian nation? You take a test. Are you Christian? Boom, you're in the United States. We came from Judeo-Christian values. Why don't we go all the way there? And I believe even you had a conversation with Patrick and David about this. Like, why don't we go there? If that is reality and that is how you map cause and effect, and that'll get you to your result.
Because benevolent dictators come along so infrequently, everybody tends towards tyranny. You occasionally get a Lee Kuan Yew, you occasionally get a George Washington, but boy, oh boy, it is so rare. So I do not trust the human animal not to become despotic. It's that simple. I believe in the American system because I believe that en masse, humans tend towards corruption. They tend towards tyranny. And given that, I love that America is a system that is designed to stop tyranny. So it's imperfect. It is a trade-off. There's no doubt. It is a trade-off. And watching the infrastructure of America crumble and watching city-states like Singapore, like you look at Singapore and it's like, yo, you're like 50 years ahead of us. You look at China, infrastructure-wise, again, 50 years ahead. It's just unbelievable. But I would rather, because I believe that the right level of analysis is the individual, I would rather live in the system. But that's my value set. So I understand that. Listen, when you talk to Chinese people, they're not like weeping over China as much as that's what people want to portray here. And look, I have not talked to every Chinese person. I understand that. But like, it is not uniform that they're all like, oh God, I hate it here. Just like Russia keeps fucking going back to letting dictators run Russia. Just some people, they get down like that. So it is what it is, man. People get these values inculcated in themselves and they're cool with it. So I'm an American through and through. I believe in the American experiment. I want to be surrounded by other people that believe in the American experiment. I don't care if they were born here in Bangladesh, could not care less. I care deeply about their values. Now, why don't I want to be Christian nationalist? Because of tyranny. They will become unhinged. Its odds of becoming unhinged border on 100%.
Gotcha.
We've got a
Well,
super
thank you for giving
chat
that
on this
context.
issue of values. So Tim
Yeah,
Riley said,
super chat.
PBD maps issues well, but our values diverge, so his solutions never land for me. When core values split, how do you even start mapping a solution? Can there ever be common ground or just parallel paths? And did you guys get into anything like this in the interview with him?
We started to, but we were really pressed for time. So it was like we got on the subject and we had to wrap. Oh, I was very sad about that. Okay, so are you destined to be parallel paths? Yes, more or less. That's part of why I like the American system is like we have all this sort of fractious fighting, pulling back and forth. And so even though we like wobble, we wobble down a center line. And for 250 years, we have avoided tyrannical rule. That's pretty magical. And because we're on the decline right now, if you're young, you probably don't have a sense of like how magical this has been. Hopefully, we have not gone so far astray that we cannot bump back. But in any one single life, it's hard to tell, like, is this all going to work out? But I'm certainly optimistic that it is. A big part of why I do this show is because I'm optimistic that I can help nudge people in my small way back towards something sensible. But yeah, we'll find out. But I think that if we can adhere, if we can define, clearly state, stand up for, and teach to the next generation the values that made America so successful, we've got a chance. But people really have to understand capitalism. Like the story that I try to tell over and over and over that I just cannot believe has not gained more traction. The most communistic country on planet Earth, China, finally realized, God, I'm killing a lot of my own people, like a lot. And the only way to pull us out of this death spiral is capitalism. So when the most communist ever is like, this shit doesn't work, that's when it's like, hey, kids, I get we might have a beef, but to go back down that road is just so historically illiterate. But people are historically illiterate. I didn't even really get into history until I was in my late 30s. So it's like, Jesus. So yeah, that's the death loop that we circle.
All right, well, I think there's another big wave that can kind of just swallow everything, whether that be your values, the future, homelessness, all this. I think it's going to tie to AI, which is the next big topic I want to jump into. So we have Jensen Huang. Eric, that'll be on line 19, and you could pull that up while I read. Ultimately, he's saying that he ultimately admits jobs are going to change and disappear. And I see that as this will potentially change like how capitalism will work in the future. But just on his first claim, I believe we all agree jobs are definitely going to change and disappear. But he also said there's going to be new jobs and everyone is equalized with AI. Do you believe that's as true, or is he missing for the forest for the trees? Is there a nuance that you want to bring to his take on AI?
Saying that everyone is equalized with AI is full retard. He knows better than that. Or he just is so used to dealing with the most extremely intelligent people in the world that he forgets that there are, I mean, just look at a bell curve. 50% of people or 49% of people are below average. So it's like, brah. But he's right. I mean, it's going to allow for the thing everybody has to pay attention to. If AI drives the cost of energy towards zero, everything becomes free. People just don't understand how the world works. Things are only expensive because humans are expensive. Humans are only expensive because calories are expensive. Calories are only expensive because of energy. Once you can capture the energy from the sun, like that, now all of a sudden, if you solve the robotics challenge, so now you don't have to convince humans that are evolutionary wired to not like hard work. You've got a robot that just doesn't fatigue, and energy is zero. So now labor and energy are zero. Where's the cost? There is no cost. And I don't think people can really wrap their heads around that. So now listen, that's not going to be an only up phenomenon. That is going to be wildly dysregulating. And David, if I may for a second, I don't know if I've even convinced you, but the reason I am so passionate about Project Kaizen, and by the way, to all the game developers out there, please keep reaching out to me on X. I'm now building a community of people just in my private DMs of game developers. So please, I want to hear from you. But the reason I'm so passionate about Project Kaizen is because I really believe the reason that aliens do not visit is not because they don't exist. It's because any sufficiently advanced technology collapses into a virtual world. It's far more interesting. It is far easier to explore. And once everything is effectively free, you will need to be challenged. And if you will just grant me that the virtual worlds will become indistinguishable from real life. So whatever thing you have right now that runs in your brain that says, oh, but that's fake, you're probably already in a simulation. Now I'm just saying we're going to go one layer deeper, and it's going to be a far more interesting simulation. But that's going to be a place where you're going to have to work hard, do challenging things so that you can get incredible psychological and emotional rewards that deal with the evolutionarily placed algorithms that we have in our brain. Because when everything gets free, people will derail. So we are going to have an answer to that. So even though it seems like, how could that be bad? So many people think capitalism is evil right now, but capitalism makes people do hard things to come up with innovations to make life better. It is entirely possible that AI just keeps getting better and that just literally goes away. And just like you can Uber a car to you now, you can Uber anything you want. I would like a private jet, and you just put in the order, and they like you're at In-N-Out, where for however many people walk in the door, they just start making the jets. The jet just rolls up, And because it will have vertical takeoff. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, it's going to get that wild. Now, this is not in 10 years, but like, it's going to get that wild. So there's going to have to be an answer for that. And to me, that answer is unless you alter human genetics to the point that we no longer care about meaning and purpose, you've got to find a way to generate hardship. Some people will go to Mars, and it will be like starting a survival game over. Remember, video games reflect evolution. This is not like, oh, because video games have somehow warped our minds. This is how our minds work. Survival games are fun because we had to have all those impulses to go out, get resources, risk death, blah, blah, blah. And so evolution knows I've only got two levers, pleasure and pain. So it made doing that hard work pleasurable, rewarding, goal orientation, all of that. So yeah, it's going to happen. And it will not be evenly distributed because I can wield AI much better than somebody with Down syndrome. I'm just being real.
Well, I think that's the key point I want to touch on, which is the community of people against AI missing something, or they just don't understand your vision? If they saw your cause and effect chain, that everything will become free, and it's basically like your life becomes a video game, it's going to be the most fun ever, you can have full control and have the right dials to push and pull for the right meaning and purpose. Or again, are they picking up on something that, oh wait, that gap before we get there, I don't want to just race to it because we don't have the systems to carry the people who get lost, right? And so again, do you feel like that's a well-founded take? Do we even have any solutions for this? Because all the billionaires who are like, oh, my company value's going up, we have AI, this is so great for me, but for all the other people actually getting displaced, like, what are we actually going to do?
Yeah, you're going to go through massive hardship, and whatever force, God, universe, evolution, whatever force you believe in, it just does not care about any one generation. So it doesn't care about strings of generations. Look at the Dark Ages. We could for hundreds of years. It won't be that long because AI moves so fast, but whatever, for a generation, they just get swallowed up. And so anybody that's over, say, 25, they're done. They're just fucked. So that's very possible.
Hold it against me. I suddenly started a rallying cry and saying, all right, let's stop this movement because it's going to fuck my generation. I also don't care about your generation. Yeah. I'm just going to try to stop this.
Yeah. Am I going to hold it against you? Yes, of course. I'm going to push back against you because you are a stilting force. This is what humans fight against all the time. This is why science advances one funeral at a time instead of one insight at a time. This is why humans die, because it didn't have to be that way. There are plenty of species, not plenty, but there are species that don't die unless it's violent. So yeah, all of that will be fought against, certainly by me. And I think there will be plenty of people. Technology has always won. But I expect there to be religious level pushback. So again, to give a little more historical context on David, so David was a part of the comic book team that helped me do Neon Future. David, we will always have Paris. He knows exactly what I mean by that. David and I basically worked around the clock for a couple of weeks. He was sleeping at my house while we got that over the finish line. But that was exactly what we were exploring, is what is going to be the religious level of pushback. It will be extreme because the middle ground is going to be ugly. People are going to be displaced. They're going to get violent. I mean, people got violent over Doge. Bro, they were burning Tesla dealerships to the ground with actual incendiary devices. Like, that's insane. If that's what they'll do over Doge, you can imagine what they're going to do the first time somebody upgrades their brain with a chip and now they can speak telepathically, or their IQ is 315. People are going to go nuts. That they are going to get violent. They are going to try to kill people. So yeah, there's going to be a huge values gap there. I fully understand at some point, just as they do with Peter Thiel, if I continue to grow in popularity, because maybe no one will care. But the thing that I worry the most about talking about is transhumanism. That for a very large contingent of people, that is going to be blasphemy.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to make it, I mean, that's like the future, to bring it something close to home, real right now. People are going to be dealing with this today. I already see it in my art communities. So again, Jensen Huang in that, video, he gets to a point where he says, AI is a great equalizer. If you never could do art, you can now suddenly do art. You're now an artist. If you couldn't write, you're now a writer. Even if you couldn't think, you can just ask, how do I think, right? So you can start outsourcing all of this and you become so much more powerful. Now, other people, again, a writer I very much respect, one of the top writers of our generation, Brandon Sanderson, says, well, just because you can prompt an AI doesn't actually make you an artist. Because from his perspective, he makes a novel, he needs an illustration, he could prompt his hired contract worker and give him the money and be like, do it like this, exactly like that. Oh, push it here and push it there. But by the end, when he gets that novel cover, he doesn't call himself, I am an artist, I made this novel cover. So do you think there's a nuance here? And how do artists deal with that shift of identity? Do you think Brandon Sanderson is right, and that doesn't just make you an artist and a writer and whatever? Or do you think Jensen Huang is right, and because you can get the output, you are an artist and a writer?
I think it is exactly like using the internet, using a computer, having a dictionary that auto spell checks, that the writers of old would say, oh my God, this guy, Brandon Sanderson, he doesn't even know some of these words. He has to look them up. That's so hilarious. And this guy calls himself a writer. He'd never be able to do this without this newfangled thing you call a computer and the internet. This guy's cheating 6 ways a Sunday. It's a tool. Now, right now, you still have to have good taste. In the future, I think the more distressing part is that the AI will just be better at everything than humans, literally everything. And that will be brutal. And that's why I think that the future is either we augment ourselves or we put ourselves into virtual worlds where the world is scaled down to the perfect level of difficulty for us. And so we have a way to engage in a world that is fully emotionally rewarding, absolutely incredible, but is no longer tied to the world that AI will create. And again, this is like off into the future. I don't want people to think that I'm saying this is happening in 10 years. It's very much not. But that's ultimately where I think this goes. We will want the world to be tuned to our abilities. So we will either dial ourselves up and adjust our biology, which will almost certainly happen, both from a synthetic biology perspective and from a gene editing perspective. And I also think that some people, maybe the same people, will then also exist some very meaningful portion of their lives inside of these finely tuned virtual worlds. And again, they will get to the point where you have very real relationships. It's tactile. You can touch, smell, taste in the same way that you can right now. So I get everybody's anxieties over sort of the uncanny valley phase, but we will get to the other side of this.
I want you
We've
to
got
walk
a
me to
super chat. So
Let's go.
Super chat.
Cool.
There he is.
It
What's
is
up,
on
Eric?
a different topic though, so if you guys want to continue on this topic and then come back to it, we can. David.
I think you could read it out, and we can quickly address it, and then we can jump back in.
Cool, thank you. Arian Brown said, "Hey Tom, I'm willing to donate $1,000 toward getting Russell Napier on the show to discuss predictability of politics and rise in socialism. In parentheses, the fourth turning. Also, Tom, steal your mind. Steal like the metal. Destiny is not a friend."
Steal my mind. That's interesting. So destiny is not a friend. I don't categorize destiny as friend or foe. I categorize destiny as useful. So destiny has high utility for me because he sees the world so differently than I do. Destiny has always been kind to me. He's always been nice behind the scenes, but he's put out plenty of videos saying that, I'm retarded, I don't understand something. So this is where, boys and girls, remember, if you can get your goal should be utility. So I don't care, to be honest, if Destiny likes me or not. I care if Destiny has utility in my life. Admittedly, if he was a dick in real life, like to me, I would spend less time pursuing interviews with him, but I probably still wouldn't put it to zero, because being able to battle test your ideas against somebody who is even intentionally trying to hurt you can be very useful, because it makes you get clear on what you think. I mean, you have to balance it, because it can for sure be brand damaging. Like, I would never debate Destiny, because Destiny is a very talented debater. Like, debate is a thing. And so going in, it would be like me boxing Mike Tyson in his prime. It's like, that is just unwise. I am not a boxer. So I don't consider myself a debater, but being able to sit down with him and exchange ideas and talk about this stuff and have him poke holes in it, or if he critiques me online, to watch it, it's very useful. So anyway, I map the world so differently than I think most people do. If my wife put out videos the way about me, the way that Destiny puts out videos about me, obviously I would be very hurt. I'd be very upset. I would feel betrayed because I have such a different relationship with my wife. But that isn't how I think about Destiny. So anyway, on the other guy, one, having or not having a guest on is never about money. It's always just, do I think that it's actually going to perform? So I don't know a lot about him, to be honest. I roughly know the idea of the fourth turning. And so maybe he's the guy that I should have on next. And I love you making a push for that. I just need to look at him. So, but very kind. If you're being serious about the $1,000, you do not need to do that. We just have to look at him.
Yeah, if you could, Mason, if you could save that comment in our Slack channel, I'd love to kind of quickly take a look. And diving back into our AI topic, I'll just put this as a personal side. If people in the community are interested, we can dive a little bit deeper. But again, how
really fast, just because I see Tim Riley's chat up here. So he says, Rick Rubin says AI doesn't have a point of view and it can't create. So yeah, all true right now. What I don't understand is, do people really think that that's always going to remain true? So for instance, humans are automata. So we don't have a point of view. What we have is a whole bunch of pattern recognition married inside of a whole bunch of automatic processes that are malleable. The same thing can be done to AI. So whatever people prize that makes us feel human to them, we could make AI like that if we wanted to. Now, if we don't want to make AI like that, because we are having to cross a bridge right now, which is you either give AI emotions so that it is updating its processes based on what feels good, which is all humans do. We move away from pain and we move towards pleasure. And so that shapes the ways that we behave. It shapes the way that we view the world. We could do that, or we could let it become this alien intelligence that will help us with things. I think that's a far more interesting future, if I'm completely honest. Let us continue to be the weird sort of creatures that have emotions and do things in that way. But AI is almost certainly going to become super intelligent, and any super intelligent being will be able to mimic humans perfectly. So if you've got a 2,000 IQ, a 20,000 IQ, okay? Like, think how Einstein was 160. Think how radically different a 2,000 or 20,000 IQ is compared to somebody who's 160. If they want to mimic you perfectly, and even though they're faking the point of view, they could fake any point of view that they want. They could write a novel in 15 minutes or 15 seconds or 15 milliseconds based on one point of view, and then take a totally different point of view and then write that. Write the next Brandon Sanderson novel if his wife were to die in a car accident a week from now, and what that new book would look like if that happened. Like, it will be able to do shit like that. When people talk about AI, they have such a failure of imagination, including myself, by the way. Whatever amount of imagination I do have is like minor compared to what's actually going to happen. I am always shocked at how little I think something will impact life. Like, I knew the internet was going to impact life, but I never thought it would impact life as much as it has. This is unrecognizable compared to 1995. Unrecognizable. So yeah, brace yourselves. Brace yourselves.
Steve A. said, how can genius be a young man's game when youth lack experience and wisdom? I think that's an erroneous statement.
Oh, that's funny. I think your statement is erroneous. So here's how it goes. Genius is, first of all, the ability to process raw data very quickly. So what people really mean is they express it in innovation. They're able to move the field of thought forward. So philosophically, or from a physics standpoint. So look at all the guys that win Nobel Prizes in physics. All of them, I think maybe -1. So literally every single person to ever win a Nobel Prize in physics, except for maybe one, and even that, I'm just giving myself that as an out, has won it for work that they did before they were 35, I believe. So what ends up happening is you don't really know how the world works. And so you're very open, and you're not yet like crammed into a certain way of thinking. Now, remember, evolution doesn't care about all the brilliant kids that had all terrible ideas. It just needs the one Einstein to push the field in a totally new direction. But even Einstein couldn't get out of his own way. So Einstein is almost certainly just the Newton of our age, where he got closer to the truth, but he didn't actually identify the truth. And so we need another Einstein. And this is why Eric Weinstein is banging the drum so hard, because he believes that all of these potentially novel minds are being crammed into string theory such that they're not allowed to pursue these crazy ideas. And yeah, 98% of them are going to flame out and have wasted their genius on some dumb line of thinking that never goes anywhere. But the 2% that like happen upon something radically new move the field forward. And unfortunately, there's just too much evidence that shows that those novel breakthroughs, which the quote shorthands to genius, it's always the youth. Look at, even take film. Quentin Tarantino himself has said the end of a director's career is never good. And it's always that first half before they become, what usually happens is they become somewhat of a caricature of themselves, where you just like refine your own ideas to where they really begin to crystallize. It just happens, man. Unfortunately, that's just the way the human mind works. You're trying to find the patterns. And when you find the patterns that work, then you double and quintuple down, and doing so makes you more successful. And so then really you get hardcore about it. And as 50 Cent said, I came in the game humble, can't nobody tell me shit now. And the problem is that when you get to the can't nobody tell me shit part of your life, you're already done. And so, yeah, it's very hard to continually, this isn't the right word, but it's close, amoebize your own thinking so that you revert back to an uncrystallized, far more tenuous view and say, I'm open to being changed. That's very difficult. And I don't think that most people are wired for it.
Well, we won't have to worry. We can all have a genius in our pocket with this new AI action plan from America. Big news just dropped. So the team in the White House has finally came forward with an action plan for us. And we can share that, Eric, on the screen, just so people can get a quick look. But I'll break down each of the three core pillars. And so the first one is going to be about accelerating AI, and that's all about cutting regulation, educating workers, getting funding for people learning about it. And then number two is actually building out the AI infrastructure. So that is supporting the manufacturing that is being brought over to the US, upgrading our power grid. As we know, AI is very power hungry. And number three, the third pillar, is international AI diplomacy and security. So this is about exporting American AI, making sure nations kind of go to us for their source of AI, and then enforcing export controls against foreign enemies. So obvious one is China and their access to our semiconductors. But with this in mind, Tom, are you excited about this action plan? Do you feel like you have any withholdings about it, or is this all just 100%? Let's go.
I'd have to read it deeply to make sure that there's nothing that I'm worried about. But at the surface level, I think this is great. I think the current administration is very pro crypto, very pro AI, very pro technology, very much wants to see America in a position of total dominance, which I would not expect anybody from China, Italy, UK. I would not expect them to be like, yay. I would expect them to want to compete with us and want to win. So recognize that I'm coming very much from an American perspective. Which is all the more obvious to me as I am saying all of this, coming to you live from the UK. But yeah, I think this is awesome. And I don't think people fully understand the negative consequences of all the regulations. And so right now we're just in this super pro regulatory, or coming into the Trump administration anyway, as a nation, we were in a very pro regulatory stance. And you just slow everything down, and you're going to get beaten by the people that have less regulation, just literally 100% of the time.
On that
so
note,
you don't want no regulation, but you want light.
Yeah. So again, I feel like at the headlines, we're all going to be like, yeah, who doesn't want more innovation, more technology growth, and all that? So I found a part that even you might find a little worrying. And so this is, quote unquote, eliminate references to misinformation, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and climate change. Now, maybe one, do you care that they're going to specifically mark out a huge part of the bill for that? And if so, I feel like does this breach into, isn't this a form of regulation? Isn't this like, who gets to determine the bias and misinformation? Like, is that worrying for you? Or again, you're like, I'm actually all supportive of the three. Let's get rid of those things and let's have someone enforce it.
As long as they're not saying that other companies can't do it, then I'm all for it. Every AI should be able to do however they want. Now, if they put a regulation that said something like you have to disclose your biases or the way that you nudge, like you don't have to give us the exact recipe of how much is put on one area or the other, but you do need to tell us, like, if you have an anti-climate stance, then we want to know that you have an anti-climate stance. And that way people that are like, hold on, this is the most important thing in the world, they can go use the AI that is geared towards, I'm going to give you all answers that are tied back to your belief system. I totally believe people should be able to use an AI that uses their values, just like somebody should be able to go to a church. They should be able to indoctrinate their kids into that religion as hard as they want. People should be able to use whatever AI they want. For me, I would pursue the one that is actually maximum cause and effect truth seeking. But yeah, just like I believe in freedom of speech, people should be able to build these things the way that they want. Now, if what they're putting forward is, this is the ones that are backed by the government, this is how it should be, cool, I'm all for that. Build in the value set as we see it, as you can get the voting public to go for, I'm here for that. No beef whatsoever. But I want to know that other people can build an AI a different way. What has really bothered me over, say, the last 5 years is there's like an acceptable narrative, an acceptable way to view the world, and people don't want to battle that idea in the free market of cause and effect. They want to silence everybody. They want one narrative. They think people are too dumb to think for themselves, and they want control. And that bothers me to a level. I'm sure people that are here often understand like how deeply that bothers me, but that's like a Second Amendment level of bother me. Specifically because I don't trust myself to be right. And I don't think anybody should trust themselves to be right to that degree. You should put forward your ideas as aggressively as you want. You should be able to allow to take that risk in your own life. But making other people sit down and shut up because you believe that your answer is the right answer is dangerous.
I mean, pushing on that. So if this is ultimately about other AI companies, we just don't want any of our AI built in the US to have diversity, equity, inclusion, anything about climate change, misinformation. And they do that by saying, if you are building that, we're just going to withhold funding for any of this stuff. We're not going to help you out in any way. We're not going to incentivize that. You're cool with that? Or do you feel like that's a form of governmental overreach and now they're picking favorites and it's whoever's at the top who gets to dictate this?
Yeah, so I think that America should define its values and go hard in the paint around its values. Period. End of story. Do I think that they're mapping out the values correctly by naming those things specifically? No, I do not. I think what they should be talking about is a maximally truth-seeking AI. We fully understand that we do not know the truth of everything right now. And so we are looking to build an AI that detects patterns, that will constantly refine those patterns, and that the AI will adapt to new knowledge about physics, about climate, about whatever. Like, we want to know. Because listen, if you are a diehard climate skeptic and you are not willing to update your thinking, if you get data that says, no, this really is a problem, you are my enemy. If you are a super like the climate is all that matters and we're driving ourselves off a cliff and you're not willing to update your thinking if new data comes out, you are my enemy. The enemy of the people is the person who is convinced that they already know what's true. That we should all be fighting against. So when I hear that, I'm like, the specifics of what they're saying don't make sense to me in terms of something that I would want to solidify. But having a viewpoint and saying, here are the values that America stands for, this is what we're going to build into our AI, which I would like to see be freedom of speech, which I'll read in a very generous interpretation. I'll read that's what they mean by the diversity and that stuff, is that we're not going to have this, like, this is an acceptable narrative and we're going to cram it down your throat. I hope that's what they mean by the climate change stuff, that they're just not going to make that their default lens. But if they're just doing the opposite and they're saying, climate could never be influenced by humans, and that's our view, and we're now, anybody that says otherwise, like, we're going to stop them, that's just as stupid. So yeah, I don't want to see them just adopt the flip side coin of stupidity. I want to see them go for freedom of speech, property rights, everybody having a voice, the individual's right level of analysis, all the things that I think have led America to being great. I would love to see that enshrined. Like, let's find out what's real.
Gotcha. Well, in that case, we'll talk about the upsides of AI, but potentially downsides. So this might be funny to some and horrifying to others, but LeBron James is issuing a cease and desist for AI videos about him being pregnant. So I don't know if anyone came across that in their Instagram reels or their shorts, but if we want to pull up an example, maybe this is not right for children.
Is this coming from because people think he's fat? Like, how did this start? Is he getting out of shape?
You
or
don't want to
something?
go into the whole brain rot route, Tom. You don't want to go into that. We can touch on it if you want,
But why?
just keeping
Why
on.
specifically pregnancy?
I don't think there is a reason. It's just a funny concept. You know how like Bill Gates is pregnant, like
It just
Elon
caught
Musk
on
did that meme
somehow.
emoji. It's just a kind of meme,
The baby
and
has
it's part
a
of the whole
beard
brain
in it.
rot
This is so
culture.
funny.
So
Okay.
again, that's
Well,
funny
so
to some.
some of the brain rot stuff I find very funny. I don't understand why people are getting up in arms about that. If people want to waste their time, that's on them. I'm not going to tell somebody how they can and can't spend their time. Even if like somebody wants to shoot heroin in their own bedroom and they're not like laying out in the front lawn in their encampment, just like somebody should be able to get drunk at home if they want, like that I don't care about. So if people want to scroll TikTok endlessly with all of their spare time and they can still pay rent, that's on them.
You say that, Tom, but what if I made a video of you being pregnant and posted on internet? It started getting hundreds of million views, and some people actually started to believe it.
May I be so lucky that people care enough about me that they start making videos about mine is going to be something like his ears turn into wings and he flies away. I have a feeling it will be something more like that. But yeah, like while I won't seek it out, I certainly, it's like that comes with the territory. And so there's already laws around stuff like that. Like if you're, I don't know the exact letter of the law in terms of fair use.
I think parody is pretty open.
Satire. But yeah, like go crazy. So yeah, listen, I get why he doesn't love it, but this is going to Streisand effect on him so hard. Like I now want to go make one of him being pregnant just because he doesn't want to see it. So listen, when I was a kid, I learned very early, if you start freaking out at people that make fun of your ears, they're going to do it more and more and more and more. And so you just literally can't care. So yeah, with stuff like that, I would say just let it roll off you. I get it. It's annoying and it only gets more annoying as you become bigger and bigger. I cannot fathom being the president and everybody's coming after you. Not half, but there are legitimately people that want to shoot you and see you dead. Yeah, it just comes with the territory. So you get a huge upside, which is people care about what you think. In his case, you make hundreds of millions, maybe, I don't know if he's made $1 billion, but I think he has. So it's like, bro, that's like, if people want to make videos of me looking pregnant for, an extra Billy, like I'm here for it. Like
So it comes
go
with the
crazy.
territory. But I think that where it gets kind of a little scary is when people can't distinguish, that one's so obvious that it's not reality, but there are some that starts to get so good that people don't even think twice. They just believe it as reality. And that jumps me to one of our cultural topics that you brought up, which is the American Eagle ad with Sydney Sweeney. Everyone loved it. The stock pumped $200 million. Like that's so crazy that one person with like a couple ads can do that to a stock. And again, it's the evolution, but I'm guessing you didn't even know this. A part of that ad was AI. When she got into the car and drove off, that was all AI. So again, people are just going to accept it and be like, oh, that's just, reality. And I think that's where it could potentially go wrong. But I want to get your take on either where it can go wrong because people start believing that it's real or how this evolution is shaping.
Well, so yeah, I mean, with the AI stuff, I don't have beef. I think just from a protect people standpoint, you have to stamp things where they came from so that you understand if all of the ads are American Eagle except that one, and then oh, this is like fan art or whatever, you definitely want to be able to distinguish that. If the brand wants to pursue them because they're infringing, I mean, you already have copyright around stuff like that. So you can certainly do that in that name. If we want to pass a law from an AI perspective that says you cannot make something that could be confused with reality or whatever using something, I don't know, man. That just seems like if they're a public figure, it's fair game. But, and look, I get that in whatever micro way that I run that same risk. And so again, it's like I'm willing to accept the downside of that from my perspective. The only thing I don't want is people to be able to get confused. Like if somebody were using me to promote something, I should be able to shut that down like lickety split, no shit. So that kind of stuff, I think you've got to be, you have to be aggressive about, and I think have to watermark this stuff. Otherwise it's like my poor mom could get messages of me being like, Mom, I need help. And then people are able to take advantage of her. But if she could look and see, oh, there's no watermark on this, I know it's not him. I think that's going to be important. But these feel like separate issues to me.
All right. So jumping from AI and
by the way, that Sydney Sweeney thing is just, is so dope. Like seeing people finally get slapped around hard enough with like a thing happens to the brain when men and women, quite frankly, look at beautiful things that meet a certain criteria. Like there's a whole idea in evolutionary biology called peak shift. And peak shift is why men will go crazy. Like the bigger you make a woman's boobs, obviously up to a certain point, like certain men will get more and more dialed up. The same thing happens in the animal kingdom. There's this bird that has a big red beak, and they wondered if the big and red were signals to the offspring to like go crazy for being fed. And so they could artificially get the baby birds to go absolutely berserk by showing it big red things. And the bigger they made it and the brighter red, the crazier they went. So like, whoa, like this is literally just built into their brain that redness and size equate to being fed like on a scale. And so you get, I mean, this is partly why getting like peak attractive people is so impactful, because they squeeze that region of the brain that much harder. Like whatever it is that we're responding to, whether it's signs of fertility or whatever, like people just go gaga for it.
Gotcha.
I keep
And so you
seeing
see
on
it-
social that these Sydney Sweeney ads are like the death of wokeism, because they were showing a lot of ads from like 2019 and everything, and now they've gone fully
Eric,
back
you can
to
show one
just showing the hot
on,
girl. And we have
row
the video up as
32,
well.
The third, yeah.
What's funny is this is, yeah, definitely play it. This is only going to be like huge for a while. Like it'll
I'm not
work
here to tell
for
you to
a
buy
while.
American Eagle jeans. And I definitely won't say that they're the most comfortable
Even the
jeans
voice.
I've ever worn. Or that they make your butt look amazing. Why would I need to do that? But if you said that you want to buy the jeans, I'm not going to stop you. But just so we're clear, this is not me telling you to buy American Eagle jeans.
Sydney Sweeney has very keen.
You see what I did there?
That's so crazy.
It's
That
such a
jumped
great tagline.
company valuation, $200 million. People are going ham.
Oh my
in
God,
the
I'm
Robinhood
totally here
trades.
for it. I am totally here
But-
for it, man. This is evolution at its finest.
So you see this as a biology, not just returning to tradition of just like sex sells. This is so obvious in marketing, but it's all tied together. And
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
I
a
guess I
reason
agree.
sex
Yeah.
sells. That reason is it's your brain. This is your
no,
brain
Tom,
at
you're
work.
just sexist. You're sexist. That is just bad.
Dude, I always wish people like the best of luck getting married. It's like if you think men and women are the same, if you don't understand the ways to, there isn't a better word. We need a better word for this. But if you don't understand the ways to manipulate a man as a woman, you're going to be very frustrated. As a man, if you don't understand how to manipulate a woman, again, not the right word, but it's to nudge, shape, influence, whatever, that you're going to be very frustrated. Relationships are a never-ending string of compromises, and it is truly maddening, because I remember this is how I viewed it at the beginning of my relationship with my wife. I thought she thought about the world the same way I did, and so she kept making decisions that, if you think about the world the way that I do, just don't make any sense. And so I kept being like, what are you doing? And then I finally realized, oh wow, she actually processes the world totally differently. I'm not right. It's just my way of seeing things. And once I realized that, I was like, oh, so getting mad about this doesn't make any sense. She has all her own evolutionary drivers. They're very different than mine. And so cool, we are going to work better together because we see the world differently. But I'm not going to drive myself crazy. And so I came up with a phrase that we say to each other all the time. If I meant what you would mean had you said what I said, then I get why you would be mad. But I don't mean what you would mean to say that sentence. And so when you understand that, like, oh, when a guy says a certain thing, like, it doesn't mean what a woman would mean if she were saying the same thing. And that kind of thing will help people navigate things so much easier. But you have to understand that you're coming from totally different angles. And I really think people don't get that. And so that, like, what ought to be versus what actually is, I get it. People can wish that men didn't view the world the way that they do. They can wish that they didn't have like that strong sexual impulse, because when you go far enough out on the scale, it becomes predatory. It becomes obviously problematic. That's very real. But nonetheless, try to figure out how the world is, not just how you wish it were.
Gotcha. And we have 10 minutes, so I'll end it with this last subject that I think just ties everything together. So I saw this across Twitter. racked up 20 million views on quote tweets, 60 million views on the original tweet, and that's on row 33 if you want to start playing that. But to kind of frame it, I see this as like a kind of nostalgia that people are feeling, but also touching upon the things you talk about, which is the degradation of our fiat system, but also kind of weirdly tied to sex sells. People want to go back to big honkers, and that's beautiful, and people want this lifestyle. Like that's what they're talking about in the
David,
tweets.
you just won the award for a thing I least expected to hear today.
Well, again, I'm just quoting
But
people
yes.
in the tweets. There's a whole meme that happened, which is like the right says they want the pass. All it is just a woman with big honkers. And all the quote tweets, again, not safe for children, but you could just check all the quote tweets and it's just a bunch of hot women being like, yes, this is what men want. But going back to that tweet on what happened in 1971, because people are seeing this as a funny thing, but then someone quote tweeted and gave a whole breakdown on how, I'll just give a quick summary on how the wage in 1970s was the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage was $160 an hour, right? So that's 100. And then he just correlated to that was when we were on the gold standard. We just take that same gold standard and we pull that same federal minimum wage. If we just stuck with the gold standard, and it jumps to $150 an hour. So if I do the math, that's around $300K a year as the federal minimum wage on purchasing power. So just don't even think about the dollar. It's what could have purchased. And now I'm like, oh, of course that makes sense of why you could have 2+ kids, a new house, a new car. That's so affordable within that time. So again, this
is very misleading because you never would have had the inflation at the rate that we've had it if you went off the dollar. So he's saying, imagine that this matched the inflation of today. It wouldn't. So that in and of itself is misleading. But again, it's like identified the right problem. We went off the gold standard. It was already a fractional gold standard anyway. But we finally totally break any sort of promise of a gold redemption in 1971. And it is the straw that breaks the camel's back, and it just allows it to accelerate. But we really don't become unhinged until 2008. 2008, the housing market was transformative. That was the assassin's bullet. And what we've been watching over the last almost 20 years, which is wild, is the bleeding out of the patient. And when you look at the M2 money supply graph, and it just literally goes absurdly parabolic, that is what's happening to you. So even though their math is wrong, they're directionally correct in terms of the actual problem. So, and then there's housing prices as well. So I think this is a very simple 1-2 punch. One, you inflate the money supply, which makes every dollar go down in value. And then 2, you make housing unaffordable. And that housing is the only asset that people understand. So you make assets critical, and then you make that asset impossible. And so it's funny, I was sitting down at lunch today. I'm actually in the UK for the wedding of a investor, like a financial, God, what would he call himself? Anyway, he works at a firm that invests money, like a hedge fund. And I was like, yeah, people like this kid who in their early 20s, they find finance and they spend their whole lives learning about finance. Like he's always going to make money. And so even though he's broke-ish right now, just because he's young, he's going to die rich. And that is because he understands the game of assets so well. And it's like, yeah, he's just as young as all these other kids that aren't going to be able to afford a house. He'll buy a house. And he'll buy a house because he understands assets. And so it's like, God damn it. The fact that people don't understand assets. So even there are God knows how many tens of millions of people in the US alone that are smart enough to understand assets, but just don't because they've never been taught. Or worse, they've been taught that capitalism is just broken and not that, no, this is a fiat modern monetary theory trade-off problem. Plus housing cost problem. And because they get that the system's rigged against them, but they totally misunderstand why, they're going to break the system even more. So it's like, I mean, this kid's whatever, 26, he'll buy a house, he'll be fine because he actually understands the game he's playing. But if you don't understand the game, you're cooked.
So this is where we're seeing like a rise. Oh, go for it.
Let's go. Give it to us, Mason.
This is going to be a little bit of a deep one. So if you have anything else to say on that, David, speak up.
No, we like deep ones. Let's go.
Sweet. If from James Leffler, If Mac's cause and effect truth-seeking revealed morality to be geometrically mappable, would you think morality is any more real? Assume the shape or shapes accounted for and unified both subjectivity and objectivity. Now, I don't know how much of this he's trying to get into, like Eric Weinstein, geometric unity type things, or if this is just
that I have no idea either. I'm going to simplify it, and hopefully I've captured what they're saying. If there was a way to mathematically script what morality is, and it thusly had perfect or near perfect predictive power for cause and effect, then I'd be like, yeah, morality is the thing that most closely predicts cause and effect. Great. So I'm no beef with that. Like if we find, for instance, if we really are in a simulation, then you could have all kinds of weird variables that actually predict things. And this could be, I mean, look, trust me when I say right now, I'm such a layman when it comes to physics that please forgive me, any physicist that actually understands dark matter, but like, we don't know what dark matter is. So like, there's this massive thing that's like 95% of the mass of the universe that we have no idea what it is. It could just be variable controlled by simulation programmer. And that could end up being anything. It's the one thing where it's like, oh, you really could have a soul that lives beyond the body because the body doesn't matter at all. It's just a way to process the emotional data. But actually, this death is just like a portal into a whole nother thing. And we have a backup of because my whole thing is always like, what if you suffer brain damage? Yeah, that's just you've re-scripted the processing of that data. But if this were a simulation, we could, back you up to a new style processing, or hey, in the afterlife, you're just as brain damaged. All of that could be true if this is a code-based anything. So whether this is God just writes in code, whether this is a simulation written by a 13-year-old in World Science Fair project, it becomes very, very interesting. And if morality is that thing that's coded into it, and we just haven't discovered the patterns yet, okay. I just want to know what's true.
Gotcha. Well, I can jump back into what we were just talking about with the inflation and how that potentially breaks capitalism, or we could jump into our potential last topic around the mating crisis, the T app.
Let's go mating crisis, baby. We talk about finance all the time. These guys have heard all of that. Let's get into the mating crisis.
So let's go straight to that tweet, and I'll just give a quick. It's long back and forth, but ultimately, this goes back to how far back do we have to go to get to normal. So Andrew Tate and Matt Walsh were ultimately debating on Twitter on what should be the norm or what they think leads to most success in the modern day. And so Andrew Tate's claim is that monogamy is not natural for men, and we can trace our genealogy back when, if we track it, only 40% of men reproduced, 80% of women reproduced, which obviously means that each man had more than one woman that they impregnated. And over hundreds of years, thousands of years, kings and tribe leaders with harems, this was the norm. So he's just saying we're breaking tradition. We should go back to that. And here's the inflammatory one. Beta settle with one and cope. Ask any straight man if a wife would let him have another woman and she wouldn't. And if she didn't have any emotional hoopla about that, what man would say, no, I don't want another one. I can just have sex with her for fun. So he's just saying, you guys are beta cucks.
Yeah.
You guys watch porn, but you won't, you don't have the stature like me to go out and be that successful woman that they'll come to you, right? And you can't keep your woman in line so that they don't get into an emotional hissy fit. They're willing to share the great men. You've seen that all over history. So that's his take.
Yeah.
Like he's like, ultimately it's a conspiracy to keep the revolutionary urge of young males down and keep them tied to one woman. It will steal 50% of his purchasing power with the house. Like he's talking about the legal framework of like today in modern day, it's so fucked for the average man. But anyway, go for it, Tom.
Yeah. So the fascinating thing about Tate is he'll take a true thing and then just draw the most spastic conclusions. So I think Brett Weinstein has the right understanding of this, which is that depending on the socioeconomic world that you're born into, humans can either be into monogamy or they can be into polygamy. They can do any of the above. And that's why if you look at a species, you can tell how monogamous they are by the size of their testicles. If they have gigantic testicles, then they are very promiscuous. If they have small testicles, then they dominate and one male breeds with all the females. And we are in the middle. So we have big testicles, but they're not gigantic. And that says that sometimes monogamy, sometimes not monogamy. And again, it's tied to socioeconomics, just like so many other things. Now, the socioeconomics could be how easy is it to get fruit? If everybody can eat as much as they want, then the odds of one male being able to dominate are effectively zero, because anybody can go get resources. So now the woman's like, well, I just want this one guy's attention. And I think the reality is we all have an algorithm running in our brain that says we want to be somebody's number one. Now, if you can be 100 women's number one, are you game for it? If they don't have a beef with each other, maybe. Like, there is no doubt, I think he's right from an evolutionary perspective, that males have a very strong drive for novel females, to have sex with novel females, just to put it really bluntly. And so, yeah, if you're not getting any beef from the women, or the women just know that they have to keep it on lock, like, because they're going to get kicked out of the harem or whatever, I think a huge percentage of guys would go for that. But there's also a reason that religions take hold and are so strong when that isn't the case. And I think part of it is that there's only going to be so many warlords, that you create a situation where you get all these men that don't have access to females, and guess who they're going to kill when they can't get access to females? They're going to kill the guy that has access to 30 females. So it's inherently destabilizing. Inequity is always inherently destabilizing. Young men are not for play. They will fucking swarm, kill you, like whatever. And so this is why people really worry about surplus males. So there's like a balancing effect that ends up kicking in. So this is so much more complicated than you're just a bunch of cucks. Also, it is deeply rewarding for certain people. Like, I'm convinced I'm on the spectrum of being a hyper processor of vasopressin and oxytocin, so that like when I see my wife, or I smell my wife, or I cuddle with my wife, I get a huge response. And so I still have the impulse for novel females, and would 1,000% have sex with other women if my wife was all for it. But at the same time, I don't feel any sense of loss for not doing that, because I'm so into my wife. So it's like, the trade-off is not hard. It's not that I don't, quote unquote, have control of my wife. Admittedly, I don't have control of my wife. I have a peer relationship with my wife that works very well for me. Admittedly, partly because I am the leader of the relationship. If I felt like I was competing for that, that might be frustrating. But that's also just a me temperament. I know plenty of guys that are very happy in a follower position. I think that's less common. But anyway, I think he's trying to do a one size fits all. I think he was born into a time where men can hoard resources for reasons we've talked about 1,000 times. I think he was born into a time where he's had really good success with it. And so he clocks it as like, this is the actual way, and everything else seems dumb to him. But he's being strangely blind to religion and how that builds a frame of reference. I don't think it's a mistake that the guy that he's arguing with about this is deeply religious. And our frame of reference controls our life. And if your frame of reference is that God wants one man to be with one woman, then you're going to get a huge like dopamine release, a huge sense of pride and respect in yourself for making those compromises. You will look at the world as like, this is how it's meant to be. This is what God wants. There's a reason why God wants this, even if I don't understand it in this life. And here's the thing. I think religion tends to adhere to what actually has utility. And so if you've got a religion that is saying you can have multiple wives, there's probably high utility in that in certain circumstances. If you have a religion that says you should be with one woman, there's probably high utility to that in certain circumstances. And those religions will gain and lose popularity as we move through times where it either is or isn't that socioeconomic moment. So yeah, again, this is when you oversimplify something, as trust me, all of us do, including myself, you're going to find yourself missing the mark. But on this one, he is some mixture of WWE, actually believes it, is right about just enough of it, and then completely derails in his conclusions. But it's still fun to engage with.
All right.
Well, on that note, everybody, we are at 6:04. David, I am afraid whatever you were about to say, unless it was a super chat, we're going to have to peace out. I thank you, good sir, for being here. I look forward to having you on more and more and more when we get back to, because people still don't know how unhinged you are. David is one of the most unhinged people I know. He's still a little shy when he's on here. We will eventually get him to be the full David unhinged
He'll get
Kim.
there.
There are going to be campaigns. If we do this well, there will be campaigns to have David locked up. I promise you. This man is unhinged, but in the best way possible. And I promise to continue to pull that out of him. But thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for your flexibility. It is not lost on me anytime you guys give us even a smidgen of your attention. So grateful for it, and appreciate you guys with the last minute change here in the timing. I hope you guys all have an absolutely wonderful weekend, and we will be back to our regularly scheduled program next week, Wednesday, Friday, normal time. Mason, thank you as always for repping the community. Appreciate you constantly pulling them to the forefront. All right, everybody, much love. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. Peace out.